Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our honored guest, Arizona's Secretary of State, members of the United States House of Representatives, members of the United States Senate, and the Speaker of the United States House of Representatives. Ladies and gentlemen, the Speaker of the United States House of Representatives, the Honorable John Boehner.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome to Statuary Hall. This space was once the chamber of the House of Representatives. It's where Lincoln served his one term in Congress and where Madison, Monroe, and Andrew Jackson were sworn into office. And since the 60s, the tradition has been for each state to send two statues here in honor of their favorite sons and daughters. Some are inventors, some are authors, some are veterans, some are pioneers, and some were just great statesmen. Our honoree today was all of these things and more. Today it's our privilege to dedicate a statue of the late Barry M. Goldwater to the great state, from the great state of Arizona. And we're honored to be joined by Arizona's Secretary of State, Michelle Reagan, members of the Arizona Congressional Delegation, and of course, members of the Goldwater family. Thank you all for being here, and I hope you enjoy today's program. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the presentation of the colors by the United States Armed Forces Color Guard, the performance of our national anthem, and the retiring of the colors. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing as the chaplain of the United States House of Representatives, the Reverend Patrick Conroy, gives the invocation.
God of the universe, we give you thanks for the gift of life and for the many blessings that life brings. Today we gathered in this hallowed temple to human freedom, to honor one of Arizona's most favorite sons, Senator Barry Goldwater. Few American figures have projected such a broad swath of influence on our nation's political landscape. His strong conservative voice in his day led to one of the great landslide losses in electoral history, yet pivotally gave way to the emergence of a new generation of Republican leadership that in time ended decades of Democrat domination of American politics. Regardless of political party, we give you thanks for Barry Goldwater's edifying example of a long career of public service in the United States Senate. As we remember him here, may we all be inspired to consider lives in service to others, whatever our gifts and talents. Impel us with your Spirit to change our world for the better, and may our gathering redound to your greater honor and glory. Amen.
Please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, United States Representative from the 3rd District of Arizona, the Honorable Rahul Grijalva.
Good afternoon, and I'm here today, honored to be here and extending my congratulations to the Goldwater family and the Arizona delegation in honoring a great American and a great person from Arizona. I'm here today also, I'm co-chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, and I'm here to honor a man who was well known as Mr. Conservative. If anyone finds irony in that, then they clearly don't know the full scope of Barry Goldwater's service to this country and the commitments to principles, regardless of where they fell in the political spectrum. He was a fiscal conservative through and through, and in many ways he personified the conservatism of 1960s and creating a political movement that changed this party and changed the political landscape in this nation. But he was also a social libertarian that we all know, and he was also a fiercely independent and honest man. An Arizonan first and a politician second. Barry Goldwater transcended that partisan divide that sometimes bogs us down too much. He worked tirelessly for his state and for his nation, and all of us from Arizona growing up in the state knew of our icons, and one of the great icons that we all knew about, admired, was Barry Goldwater. All of this to say, Senator Goldwater defied definition. He followed his own compass and did what he felt was right, regardless of the prevailing political wind. It takes guts to stand firm on convictions, to be the leader that creates a political movement and sometimes disagrees with that movement. With this statue, we celebrate the courage of the conviction of one of Arizona's proudest sons. With this statue, we celebrate conviction, principle, and service to this nation. I'm proud to be here and proud to be part of the acknowledgement of a great Arizonan, a great American, and someone that we all should and do admire. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, United States Senator from Arizona, the Honorable John McCain.
Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, members of the Goldwater family, I'm honored to join you today to dedicate this statue in honor of Senator Barry Morris Goldwater of Arizona. Barry Goldwater will, of course, forever be remembered as the father of modern American conservatism. Known as Mr. Conservative, Barry was a trailblazer whose clear, compelling vision for freedom, liberty, and security paved the way for the presidency of Ronald Reagan. To Arizonans, Barry Goldwater will always be viewed as our state's favorite son, and rightly so. He earned the nickname Mr. Arizona because he had a love affair with our state, its magnificent beauty, and its freedom-loving people. And Arizona loved Barry back, in part because Arizonans saw themselves in him. The rugged individualism of the West, bold and sometimes blunt truth-telling, and a vision as clear and true as the Arizona vistas that Barry so dearly loved. Our state never had a better champion than Barry Goldwater, and we are so very proud that his rich legacy will continue to be honored here at the United States Capitol. As a new session of Congress begins and we recommit ourselves to addressing the major challenges confronting our nation, all of us should be mindful of Barry Goldwater's formidable example, one defined by an uncompromising defense of freedom at home and abroad. I know that this statue will serve as a beacon, reminding our nation of the timeless founding ideals Barry Goldwater so represented for so many years, of an extraordinary life, well lived in service to causes greater than one's own self-interest. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the United States Air Force Band Ceremonial Brass Quintet. Ladies and gentlemen, the Democratic leader of the United States House of Representatives, the Honorable Nancy Pelosi.
Good afternoon, everyone. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Leader, Mr. Whip, Senator McCain, Congressman Grijalva, members of the Arizona Congressional Delegation, the Secretary of State of Arizona, Reagan. welcome. It's an honor to be here with each and every one of you on this very special day. A special day indeed when we gather in Statuary Hall to welcome Senator Barry Goldwater back to the Capitol. As our speaker said, these statues here are sent from each of the 50 states, and the statues in this collection are more than just a catalog of people who have shaped our history. They celebrate the full breadth of ideas and principles that have blossomed within America's democracy. Today, we welcome the statue of a proud son of Arizona, a loving father and grandfather with legendary dedication to family, and we are honored to have so many Goldwater family members here today for the ceremony. Thank you very much for being with us, all of you. Here in the heart of our democracy, we unveil the statue of an Army pilot who served our country during World War II, a public servant who served the people of Arizona and the United States Senate for 30 years, an outspoken, uncompromising champion for what he believed. As a student, I had the privilege of meeting him and hearing him speak at Trinity College here in Washington. He was great, and he was funny. Whether or not you agree with him, there can be little debate that Senator Barry Goldwater was one of the most consequential political figures of the last half of the 20th century. And that's an applause line. Senator Goldwater's speech, the 1964 Republican National Convention in San Francisco, was as bold an articulation of conservatism as there has ever been. Yet Barry Goldwater also defied expectations. He opposed efforts to restrict women's reproductive rights to the point, listen up, to the point where Planned Parenthood Federation of America created an award in his name. He sought to allow gays and lesbians to serve in the military early, a visionary, and called for an end to discrimination against LGBT people here at home and around the globe. As he told the Washington Post in 1994, the big thing is to make this country, along with every other country in the world, quit discriminating against people just because they're gay. Barry Goldwater. Barry Goldwater refused to compromise his principles, not for party, not for position, but he also recognized the value of open, candid discussion about the direction of our country. For in the same convention speech in San Francisco, my city, Senator Goldwater affirmed his respect for the disagreement and debate that are the strength and soul of our democracy. He said, "The beauty of this federal system of ours is in its reconciliation of diversity with unity. We must not see malice in honest differences of opinion, no matter how great." Today, we gather in the recognition that our democracy is robust precisely because we have beliefs. We stand proudly, even persistently, for them, just as Barry Goldwater did so well. Today, the Congress proudly honors Senator Goldwater with respect, with admiration, even with affection, not only for who he was as a leader, but who he was as a person. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Assistant Democratic Leader of the United States Senate, the Honorable Dick Durbin.
Thank you. Leaders, members of Congress, Goldwater family, and friends, it's an honor to be here today to recall a proud son of Arizona. Mr. Arizona, that was one of the names people called Barry Goldwater, one of the better ones, and it's obvious why. He was a true Westerner. He had so many accomplishments, and you've heard already reference to so many of them, but I'd like to focus on one that may not otherwise be noted. He was an accomplished photographer, really gifted. His favorite subjects reflected the beauty of Arizona, Church Rock at the entrance to Monument Valley, rapids and waterfalls in the Grand Canyon, juniper trees and saguaro cactus. There's a touch of Ansel Adams in his work. Senator Goldwater also brought his camera to Washington, and it led to an interesting story. He carried it with him when he was invited for drinks at the White House with President John Kennedy. The two men had come to know one another when they both served on the Senate Labor Committee. That evening at the White House, Senator Goldwater snapped a photograph of JFK, and he liked it so much he sent it to the president. The president sent it back to him inscribed, "For Barry Goldwater, urged to follow the career for which he has shown such talent, photography," from his friend John Kennedy. Senator Goldwater later recalled that that photograph and that gentle joke between old friends was one of his prized possessions. Senator Goldwater was in Chicago changing planes at O'Hare when he heard the terrible news about the assassination of his old friend. Later that day, he spoke to the press, and one reporter said, "Any particular thoughts about John Kennedy?" Senator Goldwater replied, and I quote, "He was a gentleman. He was the kind of antagonist that I've always enjoyed. He would fight like a wildcat for his principles, but there was never anything personal about it." He added, "That's the kind of man you respect. That's the kind of man you like to work with in politics." Well, he was so shaken by JFK's death that he planned on dropping out of the '64 presidential race for a while. Eventually, friends and supporters persuaded him to rejoin the quest for the White House. In his memoir, Senator Goldwater described his historic 1964 presidential campaign, AUH20, quote, "like trying to stand up in a hammock." His campaign would go on to reshape the party and, in some ways, our nation. The campaign he really wanted to wage. In 1963, Senator Goldwater made an unprecedented proposal. Should he be the party's standard bearer in 1964, Senator Goldwater suggested that he and John Kennedy campaign at least part of the time as a team. They would barnstorm the country, speak on the same platform, as he said, like politicians should do, standing up to state our points, our issues, each other. Their ideas, conservative versus liberal, would be debated, and the election would be a true referendum on public policy. At a time when America was sharply divided, politically and ideologically, Senator Goldwater thought that debates could, quote, "do the country a lot of good." It would show the people that politicians can disagree civilly, and that two people can have very different ideas about politics and still love this country equally. Near the end of the speech in which he accepted his party's nomination for president, Senator Goldwater said, "I can see in the distant and yet recognizable future the outlines of a world worthy of our dedication, our every risk, our every effort, and our every sacrifice along the way." Let us honor the memory of this extraordinary son of Arizona and this extraordinary American, Barry Goldwater.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Majority Leader of the United States Senate, the Honorable Mitch McConnell.
Barry Goldwater was one of the most influential figures in modern American history. He was also among the most fascinating. For a short time, I actually served alongside him in the Senate. Probably to his own surprise, Barry had become by that time an elder statesman. Free market thinking had led to defeats years before. Bennett became an engine of landslide wins. You'd think Barry would have taken a few victory laps, but he usually seemed more interested in studying the Constitution. Barry had another passion, too, and that was soaring above the clouds. Goldwater rose to become a major general in the Air Force Reserve. He'd wake before the dawn and sail over Arizona, a land of colored rocks and painted deserts. Perhaps it is the splendid isolation of being alone in the air which fascinates me, Barry said, or it might be the perspective which comes from looking down on every part of the world. That, I think, says a lot about this man of the West. Born in what was still the Arizona Territory, Barry was the son of pioneers. One, a woman who'd come to Arizona with tuberculosis with 3 weeks to live, and apparently the will to endure many decades further. The other, the son of a Jewish immigrant who'd left the Tsar's crushing grip. Barry was raised with freedom stretching in every direction. but he thrived on the discipline of the military. Barry came of age in an era of New Deal dominance, but he ran for office as a Republican. In many ways, this thinker and tinkerer, the kind of guy who dissects electronics just to see what made them tick, was both straightforward and complex. As Dick Durbin said, running for president was like trying to stand up in a hammock, but he did it anyway. He joined the Senate once again a few years later. And by the time he retired, Barry's ideas about the free market had gone mainstream. The actor who had called for a time for choosing on Barry's behalf in 1964 was chosen himself in 1980. So it may have taken many years to count the ballots, to paraphrase George Will, but in the end, Goldwater's push for economic freedom had won. And today we dedicate a statue to this man, Barry Goldwater, one of Arizona's most famous sons.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Speaker of the United States House of Representatives, the Honorable John Boehner.
Thank you. Let me thank all of you once again for being here with us today. In this capital where hundreds serve and another 100 or so are immortalized, you can sometimes find yourself asking what it takes to stand apart. Well, whatever it is, Barry Goldwater had it. People just didn't find the truth in what he was saying, they found a cause. And if there were a Mount Rushmore for the modern conservative movement, he'd surely be on it. The man remains an inspiration, and yet he didn't set out to inspire anyone. He didn't even want to run for office. He had to be talked into it, and even then, he assured his brother, it ain't for life. But there's a story I've heard that may capture what Goldwater was after. It was first told by the late Stephen Shattuck, who ran Goldwater's campaign and helped with his books. Stephen's son, John, our former colleague, is with us today. The story goes that during the 1958 campaign, they were driving through some remote town on their way to a meeting with hundreds of people. Goldwater decides, unannounced, to turn off the main road and pull up to a small house. He goes in, sits down with a constituent. Now all these people are waiting, and no matter how furrowed Shattuck's brow gets, Goldwater's asking this woman every question under the sun. Well, as it turns out, the woman was dying, and Goldwater said, well, I couldn't be in this town without letting her know that I hadn't forgotten her. That's who Barry Goldwater was as a person and as a leader. When others zigged and zagged, he kept going straight. The beaten path and the same old BS, none of that for him. But his first principles and serving your neighbor one day, one deed at a time, that's where he started, and that's where he ended. We can always wonder how Goldwater did it all, but there's no need to wonder about the statue. It's an assurance that if you just do what you believe is right and you put your faith in the people, you'll always stand tall. So it's now my happy privilege to formally accept this statue and unveil it here on behalf of the American people. And thank you all for being here.
Ladies and gentlemen, Arizona's Secretary of State, the Honorable Michelle Reagan.
Thank you, Speaker Boehner, Senator McCain, Senator Flake, our entire congressional delegation, and to everyone who has taken the time to be part of this historic moment for the state of Arizona and National Statuary Hall. And to State Senator Adam Driggs, I would be remiss if I did not mention that it was your state legislation that started this movement nearly 7 years ago. And I do believe Adam, that your dad would be very proud of you today. I'd like to mention the local Arizona artist that was chosen, Deborah Copenhager Fellows, and I believe she sure captured the essence of Barry Goldwater. It is indeed beautiful, and I think that is hard to do in a 3,000-pound statue. It has been said that Barry Goldwater fundamentally changed the way we look at the American political landscape, not only geographically, but in terms of values and beliefs. And it is an honor, a complete honor, to be here with you today, especially with members of the Goldwater family, including Congressman Barry Goldwater, Jr. This must be a very special day for all of you. For many of us, it has been quite a journey to join you on this magnificent day to celebrate the achievements of truly Arizona's pioneer, one of Arizona's pioneer families, and, as it has been said, favorite sons, Senator Barry Morris Goldwater. Senator Goldwater's journey to this moment began more than 50 years ago with his election to the Phoenix City Council and culminates today with a unique honor rightly bestowed upon only a handful of Arizonans. Senator Goldwater's career and his remarkable impact on the political landscape has been carefully documented over the years. But what often gets overlooked outside of Arizona was his unwavering passion for the people of our state and the unique beauty of Arizona. That desire to be an outspoken advocate for Arizonans, and for that matter, for the entire country, fueled his journey to where we are today. On behalf of the people of the great state of Arizona, thank you for being here today to honor one of Arizona's most treasured icons, Barry Goldwater. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, please stand as the Chaplain of the United States Senate, Dr. Barry Black, gives the benediction.
Let us pray. Almighty Creator of all things, you rule forever. We thank you for this magnificent statue and for blessing us with the gift of the exemplary life of Senator Barry Morris Goldwater. May his laudable legacy challenge us to dare more boldly, to speak more honestly, and to love freedom more passionately. May his courage motivate us to stand for right. May his faithfulness challenge us to be true to our duties. May his commitment inspire us to be people of integrity. Now, Eternal One, bless us in our going out and coming in our rising up and lying down, in our moments of pleasure and sorrow, in our labor and leisure, in life's morning and evening, until we cross the bar, for then we shall see you, our pilot, face to face. Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated and please remain at your seats for the departure of the official party. Following the departure